Brought to you by Cinefly Films.
Cinefly Films.
Are you going to be? Oh, thank you.
You're live right now. You guys can fly the drone or what? There's a million people tuning in.
I know, right?
Come on, let's go.
Guys are in the car, but I do want to dive the building up front, so I might do that.
Okay. Next up, guys, I'll talk real quick while we're getting moving here. Danielle, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now. You've done this class a few times now. We're going live here, so I'm making this up as we go. But house hacking, short-term rentals, it's going down physically and online. Guys, say hi. There's a million people tuning in right now. Oh yeah. Sorry, we had to move this class. We originally had about 50 people signed up. We had to move it to DTC. Sorry to all y'all that couldn't show up. But we're gonna record this. We're going live on it if you want to watch. And without further ado, we're gonna jump into things. Danielle Anderson. But hey, if you want to sign up and come to more classes and events, guys, Eventbrite, is that how you found out about that? Eventbrite? Yes, hands? Yes. Yeah, there we go. We'll keep them going. Got about 13 more classes and events coming up in the next 45 days. Without further ado, got nothing but great things to say about Danielle. We've done quite a few classes and events together, including your short-term rental event that sounds like it's going down later today. Yep. But that's enough about me, more about you. I want to hear about all the great things you're going to share on STRs and house hacking. She stays up to date on like all the rules and regulations. It's impressive. Like she's my go-to resource whenever I have questions on regulations, things changing, right? There's that big, you're going to probably talk about it with 2024 with the taxes in Colorado. And she's on a time limit, so it's all yours. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here in a different location since a pipe burst, since Colorado weather was freezing the last couple days. It feels like spring out today. So we're going to talk all about short-term rentals, house hacking, and the different things that you need to know if this is a strategy that you want to implement for your client. $291,000. Over $250,000. That is life-changing for so many people. And us as industry professionals have the ability to change those lives. This is the amount of money that I have made off of my primary residence in West Wash Park, Denver since 2017. That money was also a down payment for another short-term rental, a townhouse in Frisco, Colorado, that I continue to make money off of and build that equity and wealth. I think that is why this, our professions are so exciting, because we have the ability to help get people into homes, and utilizing house hacking and short-term rentals is a way that we can help bridge that gap between renting being cheaper than buying, and how can we show them that renting can actually be more expensive in the long run, or how home buying, their monthly payment living upstairs and having rental income in the basement can actually be less expensive than what they're currently paying. So today's objectives are the importance of house hacking and short-term rentals, understanding short-term rental regulations in and around the city of Denver, types of house hacking, and then why it's different versus investor clients. So a little bit about me. 5 years ago, I was across I-25 at a corporation called Hormel Foods. Worked there for 9 years. I really hated my job. After 9 years, I was like, I could not continue working in corporate America. So short-term rental is really something that changed my life, because as you know, in the real estate industry, you go from high-level corporate to $0 potential. So I lived in the basement of my sister's house in Durango, Colorado, while I would learn the ropes and rented out my house in Denver to be able to make that change. So just one example of the power that this provides clients. It was that safety net of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Quitting my job, making $0 to know I can most likely pay my rent, or my mortgage at least. So, question for you guys. What percentage of your homeowners or buyers do you think would actually rent out a room in their house?
Maybe 10 to 20.
10 to 20%? I think higher. Higher? Like 30, 50, 70? 40? Okay, any other guesses? All right. Trick question, because polls are hard. I have 3 different answers for you. About half, 54% of those who own their home say that they consider renting it out through a service like Airbnb. On a Zillow survey, more than half of millennial, 55%, and Gen Z home buyers, 51%, expressed positive views on house hacking. Among surveyed homeowners, 39% have or would consider renting out part of their primary home. The younger generations have the most experience and interest in this realm, with 74% of Gen Z and 66% of millennials. Those are your first-time home buyers, and those are willing to do what I'm doing. And if we show them how, we help get more people into homes. So house hacking is not just for Gen Z and millennials. It's also for your retirees, right? My parents are both retired on a limited income, but they want to go to Europe for the month of July. Guess what? Their rental pays for their trip to Europe. It allows them to live a life that they don't even think that they could imagine. And what that means for you is even your current database of clients that you may have closed 3, 5, 10 years ago, it might be worth just, hey, I went to a presentation, I learned about house hacking and short-term rentals and the rules and regulations here, and it's a way to like have that continued reach out. Now, they might not be buying because they probably have a 3% interest rate and they want to stay in their home, but maybe they have a kid. So it opens that door to conversations, which in this industry, we're all about having the most conversations. You're gonna have the most income. So just an example. Or they might be downsizing into an area where they used to have a 5-bed, 4-bath house. Now it's just the two of them, their kids have left, but they want to be in an area where they can short-term rent their home when they're gone, or maybe they're gonna be gone for traveling a whole year, and maybe Denver's not a great area for them because you have to live that, like, they're a little bit more stickler than places like Arvada or Wheat Ridge, etc. We'll get into that. So housing affordability is really in the last 23 years is at an all-time high. This is national data, but 27% of a housing payment, or 27% of their income is now a housing payment, which is up where in 2021, it was only 13%, which is, we're feeling it, right? Like, you guys have clients, they send it to me as a mortgage lender. I say, oh, your monthly payment's $4,500. They're like, oh, I thought I wanted to buy. Then we have to break it down for them on how it's possible to bridge that gap in that monthly payment. So if we're utilizing this, and if we're talking to clients about it, what do you think the most important thing to know about short-term rental and house hacking is important? To, like, yep, exactly. Number one concern, can I do it? I want to do it, but can I? So understanding county regulations, city regulations, and HOA regulations. That's like your first step. Before you even go show the property, a phone call to a listing agent, getting those HOA docs. 90% of HOAs in Denver do not allow them. Places like the Glass House, there's like a handful of condo associations do, but very, very hard to find in an HOA situation. And then this is not to mention, as an agent, one, there's two reasons that we like to increase purchase price. One, which is very selfish reason, you get paid on commission, right? Like if you're at a $200,000 purchase range versus a $500,000 purchase range, you're making less. Now, most agents, I hope, are out for what's best for their client, right? Well, sometimes a bigger house is what's best for the client, even though that monthly payment is more. Because if I'm in a 1-bedroom, 1-bath condo at $200,000, I lose my job. I still have to live there. If I'm in a 2-bed, 2-bath, single-family house, I now can like open up a bedroom and make money off of it. And then two, on the flip side of that too, on an advantage to a client, is a lot of people grow into the house, right? Then they get married and they do need 2 bedrooms, and they start working from home and they're making more. So then they don't have to sell that first house, buy a new house, which is thousands of dollars in cost, to go from a $200,000 condo to a $400,000 house when they could just do it and live there for 5 years instead of 2. So let's chat a little bit about Denver short-term rental regulation. What is considered a short-term rental? 30 days or less. The actual definition is a period of 1 to 29 days, but yes, that is a short-term rental. And then can anyone short-term rent in Denver? Both tenants and homeowners? I'm getting some shakes no. I'm sorry, this is different. Anyone technically can, as long as it fits those HOA rules in Denver. but it has to be their primary residence. You cannot be an investor in Denver and short-term rent your place. And then, this is the question I just asked. You can, in the city of Denver, a tenant can short-term rent a house with landlord permission. So the owner of the home must give permission to the tenant, and then they can short-term rent. There's a website called Let You Let, which allows that it takes the tenant, it's like a contract, a rental contract, and you can like divide out the percentage of ownership, percentage of rental income, not ownership. So, for example, it gives the landlord access to view like the Airbnb and who's coming and going in their house and how much they're paying, and then the landlord could specify the specific amount of extra income that they want, like maybe they want 20% cut of that short-term rental income for allowing short-term renters in their house. So it's a way for landlords to legally short-term rent their property with the tenant, and possibly, like, say market rate is $2,500 for that particular house, they're making $2,000 a month. You know, they could potentially make an extra $400 or 20% on their current listing just by allowing the tenant to offset. This is also a great thing for if somebody's trying to save for a down payment, right? If they're currently renting with a landlord, maybe they bring it up to the landlord and are like, hey, I'm going to tell you right this weekend, I'd love to rent out my house from Thursday to Monday. Can we sign some sort of agreement, get the light, you know, all those things. So it doesn't have to be all the time. So it'd be a great way to help your clients save for a down payment if they're currently renters. So what's required to obtain a short-term rental license? This is what I was talking about. The landlord has to give permission, a driver's license, and then proof of the two of the following: utility bill, tax return, car registration, or voter registration, and that's proving occupancy, that it is their primary residence. Now, if you live in one side of a duplex, can you short-term rent the other side of the duplex if the first side is your primary residence? No? Sure can't.
Because you don't live in the.
Because you don't live in that side. If you had a tenant, they could. But yeah, city, and this is all city of Denver. Remember, each municipality is different. We're going to go into some other municipalities, but this is city of Denver. Can you short-term rent an ADU and live in the big house?
Yes.
Yes. And the ADU does not have to be a detached ADU. It could be a ADU in your basement. So Denver is primary residence. If you're working with investors, then Adams County, Westminster, Wheat Ridge, and Arvada are more investor friendly. Arvada has a regulation of they can only short-term rent for 240 days. What do you think you need to do for the other remaining days?
Live in it.
You don't have to live in Arvada, but good guess. So I advise clients to do a midterm rental. Put it on like Furnish Finder or Craigslist, or there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can have 30-day rentals. The peak season in Denver is from March and through September. So October through April is when I would suggest that they do 30-day plus rentals in Arvada.
Question about the 240 days. Is that anywhere from 1 up to 240?
Yep, exactly. Yep. And then Wheat Ridge says, yeah, we're good with investors, but we don't want investors on every block taking up our housing stock. So we're going to limit it to 2% of the housing stock on who we're going to get licensing to. This is where you would check the city website. This is, I pulled this on Friday, and the most updated was as of November 2023, where District 1, no remaining licenses, 56 people on the wait list. District 2, 0 remaining license, 23 people on the wait list. District 3, 14 remaining licenses. And then District 4, 16 on the wait list. So same thing, clients, like I'm gonna go back to my retired couple, that are like, oh, like we are downsizing, we'd love a place that we can short-term rent, maybe we're gonna go for a year, 2 years, my daughter lives in Australia, like, well, they might wanna buy in Denver, but maybe Wheat Ridge makes more sense. They can't, if we're in one of these 3 districts, they can't get their short-term rental license the minute that they close, but they can get on that wait list. That wait list licenses do not transfer with property sale. So as that attrition happens, then they're moved up on the list. In the meantime, they're either living there, Or two, they're midterm renting it during the process of getting on, like, from that wait list. Make sense?
Do you have this printed out, or can you email it to us?
Yes, I can. Yep. And then Denver, Adams County, there's no current regulations in place. I never tell a client to buy in a place that no regulations are. Why? Because that goalpost keeps moving. Right? They buy a $500,000 house, they can rent it at the time of close. What happens 3 months later when every municipality is talking about short-term rental regulations and it's coming? So I wouldn't buy it in some place that's not clearly defined on what the regulations is. Or just know that that's a risk, right? That you might have to flip it to a long-term or midterm rental. Then we've got this coming up. Has anybody been, I don't remember the name of it though, SB 33, anybody up to date with SB 33? Yeah, so this is a regulation that already passed committee. I'm learning a lot about our judicial process that I probably should have learned in high school, but now because it affects me, I'm like gung-ho on this. So our property taxes are just over 6% for a primary residence tax rate in Colorado. This bill is taking any rental that is not a primary residence, so think second homes and investment properties, from a primary residence tax to a commercial tax of almost 30%. On average, the second home owners that own a house, that will increase their mortgage or their bill, their tax bill, by $1,500 monthly. So, if this passes, if I'm a listing agent, I'm calling everybody on an Airbnb list because their profit margin just went down. Right? That could be the difference between paying their mortgage with their profitable rental and not. So stay attuned to that.
When are we looking at a vote for that?
So we have a day at the Capitol on February 6th where I'm a part of a board called Mile High Hosts for Community Advocacy, as well as CLARA, which is like the Colorado board for short-term rentals, and Summit County, and we're like merging all of our organizations to go speak with them. It's in this legislative session. I don't know when they vote on it. Like, so it's February. It's going to be after February 6th because our lobbyists with like VRBO and that's when there's like we're kind of like corralling the troops. And I can send that in my follow-up email, a link if you guys like want to go with us to help this not happen.
So as an agent, am I praying this doesn't happen so that we can do more short terms, or that it does happen so we get more inventory?
So it's only investors and second homeowners.
Okay.
I would say as an agent, you do not want this to happen
Okay.
because you're gonna have less people like inventory. One, a lot of people with houses, 70% of people have a mortgage rate of under 4%. 70% of people have a mortgage rate of under 4%. So most likely they're going to be able to cash flow, but maybe not too short. So it's only 89 days. So what they would do is they'd rent out their house, like I would with my house in Summit County. I'd rent it out for that 89-day period. That remaining period, I'm going to do 30-day midterm rentals to offset. So it might not help inventory situation,
Gotcha, okay.
right? Two, it takes a lot of money out of our, like think about the economy as a whole. Short-term rental guests spend $200 per person per day when they travel to Colorado. So we will know, like, I don't know all the talking points. I'm just like, holy crap, this is crazy. I think from a real estate agent standpoint, your inventory opening up is probably not significant enough to matter. And I think that the legislators think that it is, but what they're missing is that we are not in a housing shortage because of short-term rentals. We are in a housing shortage because 14 years we've had underbuilt inventory. We have red tape for new permits to get built. We have rate lock where our government artificially deflated interest rates for 3 years. And now we are in the repercussions of all of those things happening right now. So we have very tight inventory, people not selling. I don't think that this is going to be a big mover of inventory.
And what's the appetite for 30-day rentals? Obviously, Summit County probably better, but Denver?
No, I would say Denver's better than Summit County.
Better, okay.
Yeah, and the reason being is that we've got more industry here. So Summit County is more of a tourist town. Here, 30-day rentals are higher because you've got traveling nurses that use 30-day midterm rentals. You have corporations and corporate housing and relocations utilizing 30-day, like, so somebody, like I worked at Hormel, somebody gets relocated to Hormel. They can't buy a house right away because they need to like understand the area. They're probably gonna go into a fully furnished home for 3 to 6 months. Then you've got insurance claims, those are a great way to find 30-day plus rentals. So of the Airbnb market, 20% of all Airbnb stays are 30-day plus.
So if this passes, this is applicable only to STRs or to any type of rental?
Only to short-term rentals. Essentially, they want to short-term rent. They think that short-term rentals should be taxed like hotels,
Got it.
and we're trying to argue like we're not a hotel. Like my 3-bed, 3-bath in Frisco, Colorado, that's about $900,000. I don't have 15 rooms in there at the same price as a hotel at like $1 million, right? Like why is and it's taxed on property value, which I think is really interesting because we know that property values are only assessed every 2 years. So what happens when that use changes and I move up there as my primary or I sell it and that's a primary? Then like I think there's a lot of unanswered questions that need to be addressed in this current proposal of legislation that just does not make sense. And we're tax logic, like I think the misconception is that we're not taxed. Like if we're talking investment in second homes, like we still have occupancy tax, we still have tax per stay, which I think is a more relevant way to tax. If that place sits open for 8 months and has 90 rentals, then that doesn't change your tax bill. Like that's crazy. So that more that I was planning to say on this, but just know it's coming. So the reason that it's relevant to you as realtors, if you have investor clients or second homeowner clients, you need to let them know this, right? If they close in February and it passes February 28th, I was gonna say 29th, but I don't think this year's February, 28th, like they're going to be pissed, right? That their monthly payment next year is $1,500 more expensive than they thought it was gonna be, and that investment no longer makes sense.
So if this fails, are they going to counter right back with like 20%? And then we're going to have to argue that. And then they're going to do 15%. They're going to argue that.
Jake, I would love to have more.
Sorry, okay.
I don't work in the, I'm doing my, like, as my, like,
Okay.
I'm learning this legislative process as I go. And what I'm learning is, like, holy crap, people that don't know anything are making decisions about things that they shouldn't be making decisions about. Is what I'm thinking. That's probably too blunt, but. So what types of house hacking and short-term rentals? So you've got a shared space rental. So that would mean, that would mean something like this. So this is my actual house. This does not have a door. This is the door to going down to the basement. And I would rent my home even though they know I live upstairs and they just have a bedroom. That would be shared space. That is the difference in a listing point on Airbnb. So you make less money on a shared space rental because technically there's nothing separating the owner from, or the host from the guest. Then you have a whole house rental. So same house. So I do two, I'm a hybrid host where I rent out my entire home when I travel. So 3-bed, 2-bath when I travel. And then I rent out just the basement when I'm home. So legally you can have 2 listings. You just can't have 2 different parties staying at the same time. So you couldn't have a listing for upstairs with guests and a listing for downstairs with the guests. But you could do a whole house listing with my calendars tied. That if somebody books my whole house, their basement can't get booked because the whole house, they would have access to the basement. Or you can also have a whole house listing, like I did. It took me years because I couldn't figure out how to put a door in my house. But finally, I have a barn door that locks, that separates this upstairs. So this upstairs used to be open. Now there's a door that closes. Now it's still a whole house listing and I list it as a private basement suite. So they can't get to me, I can't get to them. Same house, now it's a whole house listing. Now instead of $50 a night, it's like $85 to $90. That door cost me $1,500. One of the biggest mistakes is I did not put it in there 4 years ago. Oops. Then I kind of chat about that. You can have listings for both. So, for example, in 2021, I spent 6 months in South America. During that 6-month time period, full range, whole house. Actually, my office that is currently there, I spent $300, put a bed in there because a 3-bed, 2-bath makes a lot more than a 2-bed, 2-bath with an office. So I just moved my office to my garage because I knew I was going to be gone for a while, and put that in there. And then the other type that I'm not really focusing on, but just good to know about, is some people don't want strangers in their home, right? Some people are 25, living with 2 roommates right now anyway. Well, those 2 roommates could move into their new house, then their roommates are paying them $2,000 a month, their mortgage is $4,000 a month, $600 of that is going to their principal anyway. Probably not, it's probably like more like $300. Going to their principal anyway, then, you know, they're living, you know, for more than what they're probably sharing it with their roommates right now, but they're building equity into their home as they're living with roommates. The other thing that I haven't chatted about is what I love about short-term rentals is the flexibility, right? One, I have a friend staying with me for 2 weeks, not renting out my basement. My mom was just here this weekend. Love that she can stay with me. The other thing is that you don't have to have it all the time. If people don't want people in their basement, but they travel a lot, maybe they lock and they don't want people sleeping in their bed. Maybe they lock their bedroom, lock their bathroom. There's a guest bedroom. They can use the kitchen in other spaces, but it's not a one-size-fits-all model. There's multiple ways that they can go about this in a different direction. Maybe they, like, I'll use that Telluride ski trip of like, oh, I just want to go to Telluride for a week or Europe for a week and rent out my house just during that period, where in the summertime, that week could be $4,000 just by renting out their house 1 week while they're going to be gone anyway, and it pays for their vacation. And then we kind of talked about this. Midterm rentals is the 30-day plus strategy. Furnish Finder, Airbnb, Craigslist, Zillow Rentals, Facebook groups, that's where I list my midterm rentals. So I actually do a midterm rental during the off season in Summit County. So I do it during May through November. I have a tenant there, and then December through April, I rent it out at a higher rate on short-term rentals for ski season. So when you're shopping for a house hacker, like things to look for, like, is there a way to make it a separate entrance? Maybe there's not a separate entrance now, but like, could we like put a door in where this window is? Could we block off this wall? Could we put a barn door right here? The stairs already go down to the basement. Are there already 2 units? Is there an ADU? Are the basement ceilings tall enough to be able to like want to stay down there for 2 days or more? And then is there a possible additional bedroom that could be added with a wall? Like maybe that would be great. And then the biggest thing to avoid is HOAs. So I can like try to talk about my house as much as possible to like give you the visual, but every other, like, so I do one of these classes, then I do a house hacker open house. I ended up doing one on the tube today because like you were talking about your 2024, I'm like hitting it hard, super ambitious, and going today like what the hell did I do by myself? But today and then again on Wednesday, February 21st, I have a house hacker open house. So essentially it's like an open house that you have for a house that you're selling, but it's where you and your clients can walk through an actual active house hack where you can get like tips and tricks like, oh, I use fake plants even in the planters outside because nobody's there actually watering my plants. Or I have baskets where I, take my bathroom stuff, and all my bathroom stuff is usually in the basket. I just take the baskets into the owner closet. I have an owner's closet where my closet is, where literally I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to Houston visit my sister for a year, or not a year, that would be a long time, for a week. I'm just gonna shut this door, hire the cleaners to come in. They come in, it makes it rental ready. I come back a week later. my house is cleaner than when I left it because the cleaners came in after the guests had already left. So these events are for you to see what it can do, and I like talk about like how my house was before I change things, so that way you can kind of see a visual of that. And then I do this too for agents, where if you wanted to send out an email blast or text blast, I have templates for you to like just plug and play of just like, hey, a lender I know is a house hacker. I thought this event would be great for you. So that way you have an outreach to your clients without actually having to plan or host an event. You could just show up and meet your clients there and walk them through the house with them for kind of like a marketing thing that you guys don't actually have to do any work for. So let's talk about why a primary versus an investment property from a financing standpoint. What is the minimum down for an investment property? 25? 20? Okay, you guys are kind of all right. Here's the thing. Technically, conventional loans, in the guidelines, it states 15%. You can't actually get a property for 15% down. You could 2 years ago. Anybody know what changed? Because the guidelines still say that 15% for Fannie and Freddie, conventional loans.
Self-sustainability test?
That's FHA. It's something called loan level price adjustments. So Fannie and Freddie are still something called government-sponsored entities. As of 2000, they used to be private companies, they still kind of are, but they're now sponsored by our government. And our government says, we'll let you play, but we want to write the rules. So in March of 2022, they came out with new loan level price adjustments. These price adjustments essentially say at 15% down, you can do it, but I'm going to charge you 4.125% in points for the same exact rate that you would get as a primary residence. In addition to that, even if you have excellent credit, I'm going to charge you 0.375% in points. So on a cost of a $400,000 loan, the same rate as a Friday for a primary residence as an investment property would be 4.5% in points. So $18,000 in upfront interest just for putting 15% down. In addition to that, there's something called compliance regulations. Compliance states, still government regulations, states I, as a lender, cannot charge more than 5% in total fees to originate a loan. If my rate costs 4.5% already, we're over compliance. And nobody wants to spend $18,000 to then refinance 9 months later and they lose all that money. So, while yes, technically you could get a home for 15% down, I would not recommend it, and 25% down, sorry, if you look at this, 25% down on an investment property is 2.125% in points. So you save 2% in closing costs just by putting an additional percentage down. Same thing at 20%, you're saving a little bit more, still very expensive. Now, they don't have to opt for the 6.625 rate, right? I'm just trying to compare apples to apples. Now, the problem is with investments in today's market, there are very little, depending on how much you put down. If you're putting 15% down, there are no rates without points for investment properties at 15% down. So for primary residence, the minimum down on a primary residence is 3% down. If you're